Hi everyone. This will be a demonstration on Sgraffito. So in beginning, you just want to check on your work, and this is starting to get a little on the dry side, so to keep your work workable, like carvable, keep it wet, just take a little bit of water and spray it down. You can see how that water is absorbing into your clay walls, and that'll keep it a nice carvable consistency, right? So I'll keep this one for a demo during class time, and I have a couple ready to demonstrate on during the video, right? So spray it down, wrap it up, and put it away. The clay will go through different stages of wetness, right? This is a pretty stiff leather hard right now. You can see it's kind of waxy. The slip is getting a little bit more on the gray side and you get a different quality of line. I was carving on the inside here when it was pretty soft, so you can see all my little clay burrs. The thing about carving when your clay is wet and soft, those little clay burrs can stick onto your work, right? So you may have a little bit of cleanup that you want to do. You can use a brush and brush the edges off, and get those little guys off of there, right? And I may just go through and clean up a little bit, just make sure that it's kind of loose. Right. So going back over with the tool that I used to carve this. So this is a Sgraffito tool. It works really well. It's looped on both ends, and it's a nice size to get really good quality line, right? It's not too large, it's not too small. It'll give you nice definition. If you use your needle tool, you won't have as much definition, so you really want to remove that slip to get a nice contrast between the black slip and the white stoneware. So anything that you think will look good carving a mark, you totally can, right? 3 tools that I would primarily use is pen, your needle tool, and your Sgraffito tool. The pen works really nice, it rests really nice in your hand, and it's not as thick or not as wide as your Sgraffito tool, and it's not as sharp or narrow as your needle tool, right? So just some things to keep in mind. So I did this one freehand, right? Kind of like a wicker basket style, and I'll continue to work free-handed here. And I think I'm gonna carve a border on the outside here. So carving on a curved surface can be tough, right? So don't expect an even line, right? What I'm carving right now, that is not an even line by any means, and I am planning for that, right? This is going to be part of the design, right? It's a nice fluid, loose line. And I've connected all the way around, right? So my pot is really dry, and my scrapings, my carving are also really dry, and I just want to be careful of getting it back onto my work and leaving a bad surface, right? So I'm just going back through and cleaning up my base. As you can see, a little bit of clay has filled in my signature and the lines that I carved. So I'll come back through and clean up my signature at the end of this. So what I hope to do here is carve a little bit of a Iowa theme landscape, and just doing it loosely. So we'll see how this kind of comes out. When you're freehanding, you kind of have to take the bad with the good and adjust for how things might lay down on a piece. And proportions might not be right the first time. So that's the risk that you take, right? And it's okay to have loosely drawn things, right? So I'm beginning with some wind turbines on this piece, and I might have it just go all the way around with wind turbines, right? So when you're carving, you also want to be careful not to put too much pressure on your clay walls here. Like I'm supporting it from the inside here with my hand, and there's a little bit of an awkward angle here, right? If I put too much pressure, it's going to crack my piece, and I wouldn't want that, right? So with that first wind turbine technicians, we'll try to have a different angle or a different rotation of the blades. Again, loose drawings are okay. Because once you get in a groove, you'll find it. And I can always go back and clean things out. Main thing is to commit to what you're carving, right? The glaze will clean up a lot of things on here, right? So, you know, with the wind turbines, having a sky, maybe we want to carve in some birds there too, right? And then I can begin carving in background, right? So carving in a horizon with some loose scratched lines. Carving in some clouds, things like that, right? So if you choose to approach carving in this loose manner, feel free, right? From your sketches, you can always use those as a reference. And I have some images from my own work that I use for decal printing and making into patterns, right? So I have some large images, and on the computer I'll turn things into a design, like this round tomato emblem, right? So using the larger images, what I can do is going to be a little absurd, but this is a demonstration pot, right? With my pencil, is carving an outline on my work. So I'm holding it in place, holding the image in place with my left hand here as my right hand works around. And the way this image will transfer is through pressure. It'll leave a waxy line on the surface of my pot, on the surface of my coil pot. So don't be afraid, you know, commit to the carving and the tracing, and it's pretty faint. It's there. It's all I need for it to carve, so I don't know if you can see that in the video, but I'm also wanting to carve in the veins too, right? So depending on how things look, how it all comes together, right? It really is a guide. It works well until you find your groove, right? Feeling out how the Sgraffito is carved into your pot. So now I can use all these little lines as a guide for carving, right? Again, I really enjoy using this Sgraffito tool. So what I'll probably do is carve the outside line, have a nice border, and then with the veins, I'll use a smaller tool like my pen. Roughness is okay. You don't have to have a continual line that connects everything. Just like the brush stroke, you know, one head of a brush can make different pattern strokes. On the uplift of these tools, you can get a nice transition stroke. It's like signing your name. You want to have a little bit of flair at the end. You can swipe up on your tool. So my leaf, right? You can see the resemblance in carving this, right? If you're using text, you want to make sure that you're carving it on correctly, right? I don't think you have to flip the image or anything like that, or flip the text if you're going to be carving it directly on like this, but things to think about, right? If you're using text, you want to make sure that it's going to be legible, right? So going back over with my pen, it leaves a little bit of a lighter line than that Sgraffito tool does, right? So if you build this up in layers, you can have some nice definition between thin lines, thick lines. And you can see the dust that I'm creating with this. I'm careful to wipe down my surface so that this does not get back onto my work, right? I'm being careful with that. And then once you get in the groove, you can add little embellishments that maybe weren't a part of the initial image transfer, right? So balancing out your image a little bit, right? So now I have used my pen. I can go back through and use my needle tool if I really want to and create some definition, right? So maybe at the tip of my leaf, I can add some definition with lines, and maybe it's a little rough around the edges here. The needle tool does a really excellent job of carving thin lines, right? So if you work this from bold to fine, you'll always want to start off with your thickest line and then you know, work your way down. So Sgraffito, pen, and needle tool, right? So, in finishing this, right, I'll keep on working on the piece here, and I rather like what's happening on this side, and I have, you know, a couple more pieces right here. Like there's this branch that I can connect this leaf here. And the nice thing about Sgraffito is, you know, this image can be folded over and carved over, right? So it doesn't have to be just on one side. You can think about the spillover effect too, right? And as this dries, my lines will be a little bit more crisp. This is a really dry leather hard. Okay, so things to think about, right? I'll spray this down and keep it for class, and just to show you, you know, difference in form, what I'm probably going to do with this is have a nice open design. This seems like a really nice fruit bowl, so I can, you know, lay down a central image, maybe something like this, or start at the center and work my way out with my patterns, right? Just kind of loosely lying these down. While these are tomatoes, they might reference grapes pretty nicely too. So you can see how things come into planning, right? So with your sketches, think about how you would like to use them. We can always photocopy to make extras and you know, use them on your work. If you have anything that you want to print out, like an image, this is kind of embarrassing, but you know, self-portrait, something like that. I used this on a demonstration that turned out really well on one of my pieces, right? So if you want to use figures, that's a really great way to transfer that image onto your work and carve it away, and it looks rather realistic. Okay? We will see each other soon. Okay?